What's up? Welcome to another Flash recap and review. Today I'm talking about Armageddon Part 4 of 5, which is also Season 8, Episode 4. If you haven't watched this episode yet, spoiler alert, I'm going to be talking about the big things that happen in this episode. Go watch the episode first and then come back here. This is probably my favorite part of the crossover event so far, and one of my favorite episodes of The Flash overall. This felt so much like Season 1 Flash of Eobard Thawne and Barry Allen going head to head. This is what we've been missing in The Flash. This is a story completely centered around Barry, but of course some of the supporting characters get some good moments too. But this is just a really crazy episode, and I'm excited to talk about it. Big things that happened this episode, the biggest one being the reveal that Eobard Thawne was behind all of this. He was the one pulling the strings behind the scenes to make Barry Allen look crazy and turn the world against the Flash. So I guess you could say it was Eobard all along.
Move this man!
The episode starts out with Barry and Eobard going head to head. Barry's like, I'm gonna prove I'm the good guy, and then he tries to switch into his costume, but it turns out he is now the Reverse Flash, and Eobard Thawne has taken over as the Flash. These two fight for a little bit, and then they meet outside of this party, and Eobard lays out his whole plan, everything he did leading up to this. So first, he orchestrated Joe's death. Second, he put on Barry's face and his costume, wreaked havoc on the city so that the city would blame the Flash and not know anything about the Reverse Flash. 3, he put himself in Barry's position back when the particle accelerator first exploded, so now he took the place of Barry Allen. The Speed Force chose him instead, making him the Flash and Barry the Reverse Flash. And the icing on the cake is that he went back in time and succeeded in killing child Barry Allen. So not only is Barry racing against the clock to stop Armageddon, he's also racing against the clock to stop his own disappearance from the timeline. As you can see, he started to fade out as the episode goes on. So this is the perfect setup for such an awesome episode. And again, I was pretty sure by the end of the last episode, I'm like, yeah, obviously Eobard Thawne did all this, but to see the lengths he went to undermine Barry, to beat Barry, last season he saw how much faster Barry Allen was than him. He's like, no, we can't have that. So he went back in time to mess everything up and take his place as the new fastest man alive. Since Barry is technically the villain, he teams up with Damien Darhk, who at first thinks he's also evil, but then realizes that it's not the same version that he knew of the Reverse Flash. So he's against him. But what I loved about this episode is that Damien Darhk and Barry Allen find middle ground in the fact that they're both fighting for people that they love. And that's ultimately what makes Damien Darhk help him, because at first you think, oh, he's a villain. He's not going to help Barry win against the Reverse Flash. But then as soon as he hears that in Barry's original timeline, Nora Darhk is alive and that he actually sacrificed himself for her to live, he's like, oh no, I gotta go back to that. I want my daughter to be alive. I'd rather sacrifice myself again than to live in this world where she's not alive. Damien Darhk, I think, was not the best villain in Season 4 of Arrow, but I think other shows in the Arrowverse have really been able to use him well. First, he was really good in Legends as part of the Legion of Doom, but then there's also a cool story with Nora, with the grown-up version of Nora, and him, Mollis, all that stuff. And now here in The Flash, we have some really great character development for him and some really awesome scenes. I think this is some of the best stuff we've had from Damien Darhk. Again, he wasn't the best villain back then, but he's really cool now. So besides the grand stakes of the timeline and Armageddon, we also have Barry and Eobard competing for Iris's love. Since she's a part of this new timeline, she only knows her love for Eobard. But as the episode goes on, you see that she's kind of getting little hints that there's more to it, because Barry calls her his lightning rod, and she's like, wait, only Eobard calls me that. And also, I gotta point out that it was so weird hearing her talk about Eobard the way she talks about Barry. She's like, but I love Eobard. And I was like, ugh, ugh. I think Candice Patton gave an amazing performance this episode. And again, you get this repeated theme throughout the series that Barry and Iris' love is so strong that it can transcend timelines, alternate realities, alternate Earths, you name it. They will always find their way back to each other, which I think is really sweet, but it's also really great character development for both of them. Another thing about Iris' story that I really liked is her friendship with Ryan Wilder, the new Batwoman. We don't really see them interact much in the present day, but I'm sure that's going to change soon. But it was great seeing these two so close to each other, relating to each other. And actually in the future, we learned that Ryan and Sophie are married and they're planning to have kids. And so she kind of relates that to Iris' deal about how she feels about Eobard. She's like, I don't know if this is the right thing. And they kind of talk about that. I thought that was a really great character moment. And it's great to see Iris have a friend outside of Team Flash. I think people on Twitter were talking about this. I didn't realize it as I was watching, but once I saw people talking about it, I'm like, wait, you know what? You're kind of right. She doesn't really have any friends outside of Team Flash. And you can't really count the citizen people because they're her employees. So it is great to see that she has somebody else besides Felicity too. I think that's the only other person maybe outside Team Flash, but it's great to see her have some other close friends outside of the main team. That was really great. And I really hope that this is something that starts to happen in the present day in the current seasons of The Flash and Batwoman as they move forward. We also got some other tidbits. We got Ryan Choi suiting up as the Atom. That was amazing. He's got the red and blue suit from the comics. It looked really good in live action, and I'm hoping to see this also come up soon. And then there's this thing between Allegra and Chester, like they hooked up, but then there's this misunderstanding. And then it ties into the theme of love, because the whole episode seems to really be about love. And I mean, again, the series as a whole is about love, but this episode specifically was very, very intentional about everything kind of going back towards love. So these two obviously have feelings for each other. We can see that happening in present day, but some stuff happened, and 10 years later, they had this falling out, but then they realized that they both were being misunderstood, and then they get together, and it's this whole thing. And the funny thing about this scene towards the end of the episode is, like, as everything is going crazy, they finally say, "I love you" to each other, and they start kissing, and Caitlin's like, when did this happen? I thought that was a funny moment. Now, the thing is, all these things are technically inconsequential because this timeline was technically erased, but I do think it's planting seeds for things that could happen based off of what we've seen already, because we already see the chemistry between Chester and Allegra. Batwoman and Sophie, same thing, except there's kind of this weird love triangle happening right now. But this is giving us hope for things that are coming in the future. Also, Ryan as Adam, they did kind of set that up a little bit in Crisis, and a little bit in this crossover too, because you see that Ray is sort of stepping down from the role, but not quite yet. So I am hoping that maybe by the end of the season as a whole, like season 8, we start to see these things, and the end of Batwoman, we start to see these things. So now back to the Armageddon thing as a whole. So Flash figures out that in order for him to get back in time and fix everything, he essentially has to cause Armageddon. It turns out the speed he needs to like go back and fix everything is like enough to destroy the world. So in a sense, he is doing what Despero said, that he will cause Armageddon because he's running so fast and it's causing all this stuff to happen around the world. So it does all tie back together. And the thing is, Despero probably appeared in the future after all this happened. So he kind of missed all the context of what was really going on. He didn't know about Reverse Flash. He didn't know about all these other things going on. So for him, he just sees Barry as the villain. But really, Barry was doing the right thing. He just missed out on all this context. So he's running around, and then Reverse Flash chases after him. And that in itself causes even more destruction. And so at first, the Flash gets blamed for it, but we really see the truth. And he does escape at the last minute because he has the power of love. Of course, Iris remembers that she loves him, and so that gives him the extra boost. He makes it out. And then one of the craziest moments of this episode is when he's about to come back to the present, but before he does, and before that timeline is erased, you see that Despero's interrogating all of Team Flash, and he kills all of them except for Cecile. Like, he's about to kill her at the last second, but then Barry comes back, resets the timeline, everything's good. So Barry explains the whole situation to Despero, and Despero's like, well, okay, I'm gonna check the future for myself before I believe you, but if I see anything bad, I'm coming back here to kill you. And I have a feeling he's probably not gonna come back, or if he is, I feel like he and Barry are gonna team up against Reverse Flash. And then one of my favorite moments of the episode also is when Barry comes into the lounge area. I forgot what the official name of it, but like that lounge area in Star Labs. He gets back there, he sees everybody's back, everybody's alive. He talks to Jo on the phone. He speeds over to Iris and gives her the biggest hug. Cecile is able to sense Barry's emotions with her powers, of course, and so they all can tell something happened. He's probably going to explain it to them between episodes. But so far, the actual Armageddon part of this crossover seems to be ending. Like, the actual cataclysmic event is not going to happen anymore, but we see that Reverse Flash is in the time vault, and he's messing with Gideon. He's up to something. So I think the last part of this crossover will be Barry finally taking on the Reverse Flash again. I love this episode. I will say some of the stuff did feel a little fillery, like the stuff about Allegra and Chester. I mean, again, they are setting up stuff for the future, but again, it's in a timeline that's pretty much erased now, so it's like, what was the point? Same thing with Ryan Choi. We know that he has a family, he has a child in the original timeline, but here we see a different version of him where he doesn't have a family, he like doesn't believe in love. But we know, again, that he is going to eventually become the Atom. So even though a lot of this future stuff technically doesn't exist anymore because it's a timeline that's been erased, it still is pretty much teasing what is to come in the next parts of Season 8 of The Flash and then in the other seasons of the other shows. So overall, I am still really excited. This was a really awesome episode. It felt very Season 1 of The Flash. I want more things like this. I hope Season 8 as a whole is like this because they've done this before. They've done a lot of cool stuff in the first half season, and then the second half is just bleh. So I'm really hoping they can keep up this momentum. I'm excited for the conclusion of this crossover, and I'm looking forward to see what comes next in Season 8 of The Flash. What did you think of this episode? Let me know down in the comments. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.